Sit up straight.
All right, good people. So we need to talk 23 is back. Happy New Year to everyone. And this year, and starting off with season two, have a special guest, Dr. Negasti Wright. Welcome, Ms.
Woo!
Wright. Dr. Wright, how are you?
I'm well, thank you, Ringold.
Okay,
Thank you for having
so
me.
thank you for joining me.
Of course.
So there's so much to get into with all of the everything going on today. So I'm gonna jump into the question so that we can get into everything that's going on.
All right.
Um, so first off, who is Dr. Wright?
Gosh, such a hard question. No, I'm kidding. um, Dr. Wright is a girl from Brooklyn, a daughter, a mother, a wife, and she is a woman who has figured out the road that she is planning to take in life. I'm an educator, I'm an author, and I'm a small business owner. Sweet Little Bubbles, www.sweetlittlebubbles. But yeah, I'm mostly those things. A girl from Brooklyn who didn't know what she was doing, who lucked up and figured it out before she was 40.
Okay, so what put you, if you can pinpoint it, what's one thing that you think put you on the road to where you are now?
You know what? I have a very encouraging and loving and supportive foundation and family base.
Mhm.
As an educator, I meet a lot of children who are, who's doing what I did, went the wrong way, um, ready to drop out. And I teach middle school. Okay. I dropped out in high school, but I meet a lot of children who are going the wrong kind of way. And one thing that really helped me and saved me is the fact that I have family and people who love me who always talked of my potential and not just my failures or failure to do.
Mhm.
So that was something that has been always motivating and in the like at the base of my heart and my mind, because I got to a point where I became less rebellious
Mhm.
and I wanted to I became less rebellious, less focused on pleasing, and more so wanting to align with the people who love me. So I wanted to make myself proud by making them proud. And then eventually it just became like this mantra where I just felt like I could do it. I could do it. If they see it and they've known me since I was this big, like one of my uncles always says, I used to babysit you in my pocket. Then, you know, then they must know, the same way I look at my two children and I think like, and they're trying to do something. You have kids, right?
Yes.
They're trying to do something and they're trying to do something and you're thinking to yourself, like, I knew you before you could roll over. I already know what the deal is. So because those people were so um, confident in me and supporting me and just being there for me, I just wanted to make sure they got a return on their investment, so to speak. Right.
Okay. So to to just to go back a little bit on something that you said. So when you dropped out, what is there is there something that made you drop out? Meaning, was it just like, look, I don't feel like going to school, or was it just the rebellious teen part?
No, socially, I don't know I had anxiety about school. Like socially, it wasn't, I want to say it was the social piece. I just didn't like all the things that high school came with because I just wasn't into that.
Okay.
I realized when I got into college that I'm more cerebral. I don't, I didn't care about the sports and the dances and the dating and all that stuff. It
Mhm.
just wasn't my thing. And high school, there's so much of that. Like that is like everything.
Mhm.
And that just wasn't my thing. So I just decided, yeah, I'm not going back. And I mean, I had friends. I had friends in my neighborhood that went to my school. And after school, we hung out every day. And before school, we hung out. They just didn't see me in school. I even had a friend who used to walk from his neighborhood at least
Mhm.
a mile or two walk to my house to wake me up every morning to make sure I went to school. And my mom would let him upstairs and he would be like, come on, get up. And I would get up and I would like go, to school. And he'd be like, you gotta get up, you smart. We had a lot of classes together. And he was on the football team, and everybody thought we were dating, but we weren't. We were really just good friends.
Mhm.
And he would wake me up every day. And then after third period, I would go back home every day. And he would walk. He walked all the way from his house to wake me up every day. And I would be like, all right, fine, I get up, go. And then third period, I was out all the time. So I don't know.
So then, what was the catalyst that got you back into high school?
I didn't go back. I
Okay.
got my GED and my sister, rest in peace, I asked her to withdraw me.
Mhm.
My boyfriend, now you're getting all into my business. My boyfriend had got accepted to Morgan State and
Okay.
he wanted me to go with him to Morgan State.
Okay.
And he was a super A student. See, so
Mhm.
it really was high school. I think it might have just been a building I didn't like because I
Mhm.
actually went to like 4 different high schools.
Okay.
Uh, but he got accepted to Morgan State and he wanted me to go with him. And I wanted to go because I was in love. So I asked my sister to withdraw me, unbeknownst to my mother. And my sister said, and this is after months of not even going. It's
Mhm.
like, all right, I'll withdraw you, but if mommy finds out that you are getting your GED instead, I'm gonna act like I don't know. I don't know what happened. So I was like, okay. And she was like, and if you don't finish, I'm a this is a real conversation in the backyard. And she happened to just come home one day where I was home and we just started talking about, she was like, why you ain't never in school? Why you ain't never in school? That's not your schedule yet. Can't be your schedule yet. And I just told her, like, I don't want to go back. I don't like it. And then I told her about my boyfriend going to Morgan and I wanted to go and if she could just put me in a GED program. And she was like, all right, but if mommy find out, like that's your ass, pretty much. So she enrolled me, and because I was low key scared, I was like, okay, let me make sure I finish. And when I walked into that classroom, oh my God, I used to wear my hair on natural, and when I walked in, it was like the worst place ever. It looked like Lean on Me.
Okay.
It looked like Lean on Me. First, I had to travel through East New York all the way to the last stop. And if you know anything about East New York, Brooklyn in the late 90s, like you going through every single project to get to this damn Linden learning facility. And
Mhm.
when I walked in though, it looked like, oh my God. And I felt so disappointed in myself that I was here because I didn't need to be there. And this crazy looking guy started singing a Macy Gray song. As soon as I walked in, don't she look like Macy Gray? And he started singing, I try to say. And I did not cry. I didn't even get mad. I didn't flinch. I just decided this is never where I'm going to be again. Like I was like, oh hell no. Like this is not my life. Like this is crazy. It even smelled funny. Like everything about it looked like, what did you just do?
Mhm.
And right after that, I went to the guidance counselor and I was like, I don't think I need to take the classes. I think I just need to take the test. And she didn't want me to do that. Of course, I guess she's accustomed to meeting people who are performing very low academically. And
Mhm.
I was like, well, like, because when I was in high school, I was in AP calculus, AP history. And I was actually taking some courses that the math teacher said I would do great in after school.
Mhm.
So it wasn't a lack of ability. I just really didn't want to be there. And I do attribute it to the social aspect. I really wasn't into that. But I went to the guidance counselor and she fought me tooth and nail to not let me just test. So I went over her head and I came in my transcripts. And then the head of the school was like, all right, we'll take the practice. And if you do really well on the practice, we'll let you test, but we have to wait at least a month. And when I took the practice, I got every single question right.
Okay.
Every single question right. And then 2 weeks later, they signed me up to take the actual GED exam.
Mhm.
And I got one question wrong. And then they wanted to do this like award ceremony at the school. But I was so out of touch with all that stuff that went with school
Mhm.
that I didn't show up. I was just like, yo, I just want my thing that say I could apply to colleges now so I could go with my boyfriend. I don't want no bells and whistles. So I didn't even show up to that. And they sent this official plaque from the New York State Department of Education
Mhm.
because of how I performed on it. And I threw it in the trash.
Why'd you throw it in the trash?
I don't know. I really just didn't care for the bells and whistles of school. I
Yeah.
really didn't, whatever it was. I really just think I just was like, I'm done. Maybe my spirit was ascending to doctorate land. I don't know. But like I was ready before my time. I was like, I don't need this. I'm going this way. So I threw it in the trash outside of this place in the public trash, like not
Mhm.
even the home trash. I could go back and get it later. I threw it right in the trash and just got on the bus and went home. And then I did. Their mommy still didn't know. My mom still didn't know until I started applying to colleges. Then I told her because that was like in early fall where I was already done with high school. She had no idea.
Okay.
It wasn't until I started applying to colleges that I told her, and she was just like, "What?" Like she didn't believe it, but she didn't know. Like that's the moves you used to make back in the day. Like now everything's on the internet. Kids can't get
They
away with
can't
it.
do nothing now.
I track everything. Like, what you have for lunch?
So did you end up at Morgan State?
No, my uncle who swore he babysat me in his pocket said, "If you go, you're gonna get pregnant."
Okay.
And I was like, "No, I'm not." And he was like, "You think I don't know you're having sex?" And I was like, "I'm not doing that." And he was like, "You think I don't know?" And then I said, "All right, fine. I'm not gonna get pregnant." He was like, "What do you think happens in college? You go, you have sex, and you're going with a boyfriend, then you're gonna be trying to live off campus, then you're gonna be pregnant, you're gonna be right back here." So
Mhm.
I did get accepted to every school I applied to.
Okay.
And I subsequently went to Lincoln University, 1854 HBCU for sure, first HBCU. I went to Lincoln University, and where my other sister, was already attending. She was a sophomore, and I told my boyfriend that I wasn't gonna go to Morgan, and he was so heartbroken. He was so heartbroken, and a year later he dropped out, and he blamed me, like but he dropped out, and yeah, I went to Lincoln, played Sigma Gamma Rho, yep, Spring '06, Tail Club, um, made the Dean's List a couple of times, made a lot of great friends, and it was great. And I was very strategic about not getting into any sort of relationships or anything,
Mhm.
because that was when my focus steadied, and I knew that I wanted to do well.
Okay.
I even had a cousin who used to like drive up there, and then we would drive to New Jersey and stuff, stuff like that, because he was living in Virginia.
Mhm. So was
Oh,
there
I had a lot of support, a lot of support.
so in so during your freshman year at Lincoln, was there ever a point where you got that feeling again about not wanting to be in school?
When my sister died, for
Oh,
a split second, and that was because when I went home for the break, my
mhm.
mom told me I didn't have to go back if I didn't want to. And
Okay.
at that moment, I didn't want to. And then it hit me like, if I don't go back now, I'm not going to go back. So
Okay.
I went back maybe a week or two after a funeral, and it was rough. But I knew if I didn't go back, I wasn't going to go back.
Okay.
I was just like, when she said it, I thought about it. And I mean, like, when I said split second, it was a split second where she said it. And then I was like thinking about it. And then I said, damn, if I don't go back, I'm not going to go back. And I was just like, no, I'm going to go. I'm going to just go. If anything, I'll just call my cousin or, whatever. But I'm going to just go. And my best friend was actually on the campus at the same time, too. My best friend is now my cousin because she
Mhm.
married my cousin. So that made it easier. But that time, I was like, no, I'm not going to, And then that next semester, I joined my sorority. So that actually helped to kind of like cut
keep you
down on
busy.
all the noise, all the noise I was hearing. That helped a lot because I was doing more community service. So it's funny, the thing that kicked me out of high school, well, not kicked me out, but the thing that made me run from high school
Mhm.
is the thing that made me stay in college. Because I
Yeah.
was so, so maybe I was rebellious on a low, like, but no black lipstick and black hair and stuff. But everything I hated about high school was what helped me to stay in college, which was socializing and being involved. And I did a lot of things in college following joining my sorority. I was on a radio station,
Mhm.
TV station, communications major, stepping all over the place, winning all kind of awards. So I think that sometimes your story, if you survive it, if you
Mhm.
survive your own story, becomes a testimony for others to motivate them. Because I have students who sometimes they feel like I felt, like they feel out of place or out of sorts within their school. And I share with them, I tell them, like, I was there, I was that person, and you could do it. Just find a little niche or figure out something, but you could make it through. When I was teaching high school, I actually was the keynote speaker for the graduation. And I actually shared that with my students for graduation. My director and principal did not know that I did not fit in high school. So their mouths dropped as I was sharing. But I shared it with my students, and I'm a special educator. So them graduating was like major, and it was an all male school, all black males. And I shared with them that if they were sitting in, if they, because they made it to this part of their life, this graduation,
Mhm.
they can do amazing things. Because
Okay.
at their age, I didn't even have that in me to get to where they're sitting. And
Okay.
then, like they were just like, I never told my students that. And they were so shocked, like, what? At the time I was Miss McCurdy. Miss McCurdy, you got out of school? And I was like, like they were shocked. And then I got a standing ovation, surprisingly. But, I was just really being very honest with them and very forthright with them that it takes a lot. When you think about all the things that are happening in high school, it's rough.
Mhm.
It's really rough, especially when you come from an environment where you're not typically judged often, where people are cheering
Mhm.
you on and telling you you're great and you're the best. And then you go to high school and it's so different. It's a different world. So, well, now I'm middle school, but when I work with students who are not adjusting well, I
Mhm.
totally get it. Even
Yeah.
if you can't explain it, I get it. It's just a feeling.
And it's good that that you have that you have your story to kind of help guide or guide them when they're feeling like what they
Yeah.
don't just understand
You're
they're
like,
old or whatever the case
yeah.
is. You can tell them your story and then they're like, well, damn,
Yeah. It's
she
like, oh,
gets
she
it.
really did get it. Like, no, I
Mhm.
really get it. I've been there, done that, got the GED. So I never really regretted it.
Mhm.
Um, but I did a little. Like it wasn't anything I ever said to anyone because GED, good enough diploma, all that kind of
Mhm.
stuff. So it wasn't anything I ever said to anyone. I never tried to overcompensate for it. I just decided that I wouldn't quit again, and it wasn't like I just completely quit.
Mhm.
But you start something, you want to finish something, and continuity in life is important.
Yeah.
So I would say after choosing the alternative route was when I decided I wouldn't quit unless it was something I knew I should completely give up on. Like I'm not going to keep on doing the same things over and over and not getting a good result. But I just knew that I would definitely say like academically, I knew that I wouldn't give up on myself in that way. Like you start, finish, go ahead and walk through the fire. You'll be all right on the other side. And then you learn that, regardless of what you do, it doesn't last forever. You know, high school doesn't last forever. You're not in college forever. It's not forever. You know, you'll make that transition like a video game. You're not on level one forever, but you got to get to the end of level one.
Yeah. I mean, and I think it's a good thing. And like I said, there's as I have gotten older, I started to learn, regret is, I don't think, and this is just my opinion, I don't think that we should regret anything, even the bad things that happen to us or that we may do. I think that everything plays a part in molding us into who we are or who we're supposed to be in the future.
Yeah.
Just like if you would have stayed, if you would have stayed in school, maybe you wouldn't have gotten to the stage where you are now. If you would have gone to Morgan, you may not have finished. You may not have, you may have ended up pregnant, like your uncle said. So it's all of those things. So I don't, like you said, you don't regret it. It's a part of your story that that helped mold you into who and what you are today.
No.
So
And ironically, what do I end up doing? Being an educator.
yeah.
Isn't that crazy? And then I was teaching high school,
Mhm.
coaching basketball. We started a little business at the school where the boys were selling smoothies to the nearby businesses, and they were making money every week. Like they were
Mhm.
paid. Like it was, I don't know, it was something about it that the businesses around us just loved. And they were like 11 o'clock. They were coming in, putting in their orders, and we were dishing them joints out. And it was $5 for a cup, like a 10-ounce cup. It was $5. And I ended up doing all of these things that I hated when I was in high school. So it was like, okay, God, I get it. I got it.
Yeah.
Got
You
it.
just needed the time to grow into it. When we're young, we don't see it, but as we go on our journeys, it makes more sense to us.
Yeah.
So after all of that, we fast forward a little bit. So when did you start your doctorate program?
Okay, I started my doctorate program in 1976. No, I started my doctoral journey in 2016. I was pregnant with my son, but I didn't know yet. I
Mhm.
was pregnant with my son, and my daughter was 2. And my daughter, the CEO of Sweet Little Bubbles, said, okay, she said, Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be a doctor, but I want to be the kind of doctor that when you go into the emergency room, this is for real her words. I want to be the kind of doctor that when you go into the emergency room, I fix like their mouth. If something's wrong, I fix it.
Mhm.
And I was like, what? And I said, okay, like a dentist. And she said, no, not the dentist, the doctor in the emergency room. That's what I want to do. And I was like, okay. And I hadn't thought about getting a doctorate, getting my EDD at all. But when she said that, it was like a bell just was like click ting. And I thought to myself, well, if I can go and be a doctor, of course I wasn't going to try and go be a medical doctor.
Mhm.
And I was like, if I can go and be a doctor, and she's hearing people call me doctor, maybe it will become more achievable to her, more real to her.
Okay.
Because I know when I was a kid and, like my friends would say, I want to be a doctor, I want to be a lawyer. It always seemed like something from TV.
Yeah.
It didn't seem attainable, for some reason. It just didn't seem like something that anybody I know would actually be able to do.
Mhm.
And that was something I always thought about as an adult. Like, I wonder if I saw more doctors and more lawyers personally that I actually knew,
Mhm.
you know, would that have changed my trajectory at all? So when she said that, that's what made me apply to the University of Cumberland to
Mhm.
get my doctorate in Kentucky. And I just thought, if I do it for her, like, then she could see it. And then she knows that anything is for real possible. And to date, that is how she thinks. She really thinks that she's a very driven little girl or a
Mhm.
little person. She's a very driven person.
Mm-hmm.
And she does believe that anything is for real possible. Like she doesn't look at things like this is beyond me. You
Mm-hmm.
know, see it
Yeah.
in her approach to everything she does. She really believes that, oh, I could do this. You know, even in class, it's an honor watching her in the virtual classroom. Like I know a lot of parents are complaining about this online learning, but I am so enamored to watch her in class
Mm-hmm.
because she is a firecracker. You know, like the teacher, he asks a question, boom, Deborah. You know, when she's turning in her work, boom, Deborah, this is great. And I'm like, this is my child. This is my child. You know, like it feels so good to watch. And she doesn't get an assignment and goes, huh, what's this? Even her clarifying questions when she asks are like, wow, you work like a scholar, like a for real.
Mm-hmm.
You ready to get to the business, you know, like that's how she does everything.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if it's because she was watching me while I was doing my studies and listening to conversations, because there were some nights where my computer was on and she was right there because I
Mm-hmm.
had no other choice, because my husband was working 2 jobs and stuff like that. But I mean, I was working full time, but we were new parents and
Yeah.
daycare is rent. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
so ugh. So he was working a second job, but that I did it because of what she said to me, and I just thought, well, let me make it real for her so she knows that it is possible. Like you go do it. Look, I did it. And for the rest of her life, when she's in medical school, well, she won't be for the rest of her life, God willing. God willing. But I could say, look, I did it, so you could do it. And that's a real conversation. I did it. I made you so you could do it. You can do it. I know you can do it. So that was really what it was. Like I really wasn't thinking of um it wasn't anything that was on my brain. Like I had my master's
Mm-hmm.
because I was transitioning into education from communications,
Mm-hmm.
and I needed a master's in order to get better at teaching. If you want to do something, you want to do it right. But
Mm-hmm.
I didn't have any aspirations of pursuing my doctorate until she said that to me. And I just was thinking like, well, damn, how I'm gonna do this? And I just thought, okay, well, if they hear me, if she hear people calling me doctor, then she knows she could be doctor, and then it becomes real for her. And we know that in society, they always say you need representation, and
Mm-hmm.
people need to see where they want to go. Like you don't use a map and not look at it.
Yeah.
Sometimes who we become is a map for other people.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I'm not a medical doctor, but at least, she knows that that is possible. Like you could go ahead and do it.
But that's what, especially for, I want to say for, for our kids, for our generation, the our future, the people that look and sound like us and everything. That's what they need to see, because it's, and like you said, it starts in the home. Because I always tell people, your lane is your lane. People like to try and drop everybody and everything into one lane. Just, like you said, you want her to know, okay, there's different types of doctors. It's not just a medical doctor. There's this, there's that. And I know one thing that I tell people, and me being honest, is I've been in college since what, 2000. My oldest son was born in 2001.
I,
So I tell people I've been in college since 2001. And people say, well, you don't want to finish. I said, no, it's not that I don't want to finish. I said that people need to know that college, and I don't want anybody to hear this and take this the wrong way, but I want them to understand that college isn't for everybody. There's trade schools, there's different avenues to go. It's not that I don't want to finish. It's just that, you know, I've been blessed, I would say, to land good jobs, 6-figure jobs and different things like that have allowed me to, take care of my family and different things like that. But like you said, you want them to see. So I know one thing that I, show my boys is that, because I have 3 boys, is that I work, I work my ass off. I might not, oh, daddy, you this and that. there's never a time where my boys could ever look, even when they get older, and say, you know what, dad just sat his ass on the couch and didn't do shit. No, my kids will never say that. They always see me getting up and going. It's, when I leave to go to work, is you going back to work again? I want them to see, I want that. If nothing else they get from me is that, you know what, dad never took a day off. It was always time to go to work. Same thing like you're showing your daughter there's different types of doctors, and you don't have to be a medical doctor. You don't have to be a dentist. You can be a PhD, or all of the other letters that goes with that goes with that. But I want my boys to know, look, there's nothing wrong with grinding and busting your ass. I want them to go to college. I told them, don't take the route that I took. And it's not that I had
$1 billion Fortune 500 company.
yeah, you know what I mean. And I told them, I said, it's not that not that I'm not working in a coal mine or anything like that, to where it's back-breaking work or anything like that. But I told him, I was like, daddy goes, I'm gonna go to work. You never have to worry about it. Like I said, I'm gonna do what I gotta do to get it. If I gotta go out there and Uber, if I gotta go flip a couple burgers, whatever the case is, I'm gonna make it happen. But enough about me, back to you. Okay, so during your time doing your doctorate, was there a time where you just wanted to throw your hands up, like, you know what, I can't, or I just need a break from it? Has there ever been a time like that?
A time, okay, so since I'm taking so long, I'm gonna say no.
Okay.
I got so addicted to being finished
Hmm.
that I was like on autopilot, grind mode, like, no, this is gonna get done. Even to the point where when I had my son, I took off, and I only took like one class a semester for a year. And then that next year, I did 4 classes a semester
Okay.
for the year. And the university actually had me sign a waiver so that if you experience any crazy amount of stress or anything like that, you cannot hold us liable for this,
Hmm.
because typically that's just not what they allow students to do. And
Okay.
that's how committed I was to being finished, because
Okay.
like
So
sometimes you need that extrinsic motivation, you
yeah.
know, and I really wanted and love for people to call me doctor, and my daughter to hear that. And
Hmm.
now I love that my son can hear that as well,
Yeah.
because they, at least like one, they know it does come with some amounts of prestige and respect, because it
Mm.
instantly says you're in that 2% of the world.
Yeah.
You're different, you're unique, you're smart, you're this, you're that. And I just became committed to that. I could hear her voice in my head still saying that that's what she wanted to do.
Hmm.
So I just was like, oh no, I'm going to do this. Like,
Okay. So now with everything, you starting in 2016, you're going through the years. How was, so I'm assuming in 2020 you were close to finishing, or at the finish line
yeah.
when this pandemic hit. How did that impact, you finishing up your uh, what's the word? You finishing up your thesis. Uh,
Dissertation.
there we go. I'm drawing a blank. Dissertation. So you're trying to do your dissertation. Pandemic hits. Kids are home now. How was that for you, trying to do your dissertation and also be and homeschooling?
Yeah. Well, selector, come down now. You're asking a question. Um, it was a blessing and a curse, because now I had more time to work on my writing. Now
Okay.
I have more time to complete my dissertation. And my daughter was in first grade when the pandemic hit. My son was in daycare. So, we pulled him out when we realized we weren't going back to school.
Mhm.
And my school district wasn't live, like we weren't doing live classes yet. We were
Okay.
creating assignments and the students were completing them. It was like asynchronous lessons.
Hmm.
So in the interim between like completing the assignments and then me grading the assignments and stuff like that, I was working on my writing. And I really saw it as an opportunity to get done because now I didn't have to fight traffic.
Hmm.
Now I didn't have to rush to get to school so I could avoid aftercare fees. You know, because I'm getting off of work at 4 o'clock and then it's about another 45 minutes to my daughter's school and then 20 minutes to my son's school. But he worked at the street from my husband. So on days when my husband wasn't working, he would pick him up. But days where he was working, I had to make sure I got them both then before 6 o'clock. So I
Hmm.
wasn't getting home till like 6:30. And then you gotta cook food and bathe people
Hmm. Yeah.
and get them actually in the bed. So I saw it as a blessing that
Hmm.
I had all of this time now. Um, but then of course all the death and all the bad news and all of that, it was like rough because it was weighing on you mentally where you're just like, oh my God, I don't want to get sick. I don't want anybody to get sick. I don't want to lose anybody I know. But
Hmm.
I just used that time like I was going to sleep later because I wasn't waking up as early because now I don't have to drive.
Okay.
So classes started at 9. I was waking up around 8:45. So and that was a good thing. And then, you know, the time where the kids are working and stuff like that. If I wasn't meeting with my students, because some of my students I did have to meet with them online live like this, some of the disabled students. So if I wasn't doing that, I was working on my writing. I wasn't attending a lot of things, family events. People wasn't seeing me. I think I got put out the circle of trust. Not showing up. I was in a lot of places and I was really just thoroughly committed to getting done.
Okay.
So when the pandemic hit, I was just like my computer went everywhere with me.
Hmm.
Everywhere with me. And I think my chair saw that too and my advisor because as soon as she sent me something within like I would say 24-hour turnaround every time. And that
Okay.
actually helped to speed up the process too, because when people recognize that you like boom, boom,
Hmm.
they kind of look at you differently because they're like, let me make sure I do what I do because she about to come with what she doing. And I ain't trying to look like I'm the one messing stuff up. So it's like boom, 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 boom. And
Hmm.
that's something that I teach my children too. And then I was saying to my husband the other day, I was like, nah, somebody give you something to do. You got to be like, here, here.
Yeah.
Because then they recognize that's how you work. And then that's how they'll continue to work.
Hmm.
But you just can't give any people, don't beat yourself up,
Yeah.
but don't make excuses for yourself either. You
Hmm.
boom and boom, and then people learn that about you. So like you send an email, you're gonna get a response right back because people know that's how you work. So you kind of just teach them how to work with you. So it just turned into that, and I know my advisor noticed the shift that I was like, you know, even down to the last minute edits. It was like over the Thanksgiving break, I was like, boom, boom, what, boom, huh? Put a period, boom, dot, put an X, cross this out, add this resource, and it was that fast because initially, and it carries a lot of weight because initially, I was actually told that if I didn't have everything in by October, that there might not be the possibility of defending last semester in
Okay.
December 2020. And then I was like, you know what? Okay. And then I still just pushed, but I doubled up on whatever request I received. So she
Hmm.
said something back, I sent it back. She said, I sent it back, sent it back, sent it back. And then she sent me the email like, all right, you were going to defend on December 8th. And I was like, yes. I just snuck right in there. So I just, you know, but I think that's important. Like your turnaround time speaks volumes to anyone. And then more people just want to do stuff with you and for you because they know you're not wasting their time and they know you're serious about it, you
Yeah.
know. And even if you turn around and you got a question or something, like you're like, well, hey, I have this thing, but I was wondering if this, so I did both here. and then, people appreciate that because it makes their job easier. Even if you're applying for a job, like I'd be like, every single job I've ever had, I've
Mhm.
always been like, boom, boom, and I'm gonna call you today, and I'm gonna call you tomorrow, and I'm gonna show up, and I'm thing, and I'm email, and I'm thing, because it makes their job easier.
And also
Yeah,
also helps, speed up
yeah.
speed
Then
up
people
your process.
get, yeah, if you're making their job easy, think about it. Like, if you're in human resources or something, it's probably off topic, but if you're in human resources or something like that, you're reading 1,000 resumes.
Hmm.
You're getting a billion phone calls. And if you know that you ask somebody for something and they give it back to you in like 10 minutes, worst case scenario, 9 o'clock in the morning, that joint is right there in front of you,
Hmm.
you just made their job a billion times easier.
Yeah.
Especially if you're already qualified, then
Hmm.
they just got to make sure they could check off this box to say, okay, you come on in. Versus, well, I'm waiting for your references or I'm waiting to hear back. When it comes down to it, make other people's job easier by coming with the fire. Boom, 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 boom. Got it. Oh, I don't got it. I'm gonna have it. I'm gonna go get it.
Hmm.
And that's it. And I mean, who doesn't want that?
So when you received, after you defended your dissertation and everything, what was the wait like, waiting for that final stamp of approval of it's yours? What was
Yeah.
that wait like?
So after you defend us, I didn't know, and maybe I don't know if I'm telling like dissertation secrets. I don't know. But after you defend, well, first of all, the defense, it was hard. Like I can't front. It's not hard because you created this knowledge,
Hmm.
so you should be able to just talk about it.
Okay.
But I guess, like, okay, if I were doing another like research or something later, I would probably do it better because I'd be more comfortable with talking about myself, because that's really what you're doing. Like, this research is yours. You're talking about yourself, and you're letting them know that you know what you did, right?
Okay.
So the defense was crazy. I held my composure though, and I came out swinging. And then they asked a couple of questions about the research, and I talked about it. And then there were moments where I didn't know if I was talking too long and stuff like that. And then they exit you from the Zoom, and you're just sitting there waiting for text to come
Mhm.
back, right? So I'm
Mhm.
just sitting there, and I'm just like, in my head, I'm like, they're not gonna tell me no, because it's a point where you're like, I wouldn't be here if you didn't know I was capable. Like when I
Okay.
was joining my sorority, it was not ideal. Of course, you want to present your best self and all of that. But in moments where I felt doubt, another uncle of mine was like, if they didn't want you, you wouldn't be there, and you could do it. You're straight. Go ahead. So that's there's some people who drop some real golden nuggets in your life
Mhm.
that they don't even realize how applicable what they're saying is to so many different parts of your life. But like I was telling my niece, you have to be open, and you have to make sure that you are communicating with the people who love you and know you,
Mhm.
right? Because I had some nuggets dropped in my life that I could be busting them out. Like, continuity is everything, which was something the uncle who used to babysit me in the pocket said.
Mhm.
And that was something that kept me motivated. He was like, continuity, people look for that. Even on your resume, you don't want to have gaps and da, 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 da. And I use that in everything.
Mhm.
Even when I'm volunteering at my kid's school, like, okay, I know I was gonna be at 10 Easter egg hunts, but I started, so let me just make it to all of them, you
Mhm.
know? But my uncle said to me, and he has his PhD, and um, he said it to me 12 years ago. He was like, if they didn't want you, you wouldn't be there. And when
Mhm.
I was doing my defense, I thought that to myself. When I started to doubt a little, I said, you know what? If they didn't think I was ready to be at this moment, I wouldn't be here, because it's not one of those things where you just write this whole dissertation, you turn it in, and they say, okay, come defend it. Okay, X, get out of here. You know,
Mhm.
they're reading it and not writing it, but they're going through every part of your dissertation with you from the time you start.
Okay.
reading it, and then they're saying, oh, take this out or change that, or you don't need this, or why do you have this, or what is this for, and what is this supposed to mean, why are you using it, it's all of this stuff. How
Hmm.
does this fit into your theoretical framework, all of this stuff. So they kind of know it as much as you do, but you put the passion behind it.
Okay.
The fact that they were reading it and everything with me, that changed my thinking right away. And I was like, no, they're about to tell me I'm good, because they wouldn't say, okay, you're ready
Okay.
at that moment. So, I mean, I was sitting there and my hands were like this. And I was just like, all right. And then the text, I got the iPhone, right? So it
Hmm.
went to my spam first. After like 2 minutes after they exited me out of the room, they had already texted me and said, come back in. But it was in the spam folder. So I was sitting there for like 10, 15 minutes, driving myself crazy, and then I caught myself. And then I went crazy again. Then I came back. Then I went crazy again. And then my email popped up and they were like, come back in. And I didn't realize that they sent the text to the spam until the next day. And then that made me feel really good that it didn't take that long for them to send a message to the spam.
Hmm.
But yeah, I was nervous, but then I wasn't nervous. Like it's like going through rounds of interviews, you're like, they done got me in the third round. Like, am I,
I'm good. I'm good. You got me.
no, I'm sitting in
Made
front
it
of the
this far.
camera. Right. Yeah, so it was like that.
Okay. So I know the people, listening or watching this later on are going to say, oh, well, he forgot to ask her. So after all of that, we know you have your PhD. What did you get your PhD in?
Educational leadership, school leadership.
Okay.
So might be your next superintendent. No, I don't know. I don't know. But I got into school leadership, and you know, I'm open to. I would like to run a school one day.
Okay.
I would, but that's not necessarily. I wouldn't say that that was my aspiration for getting a doctorate, because you don't need a doctorate to run a school. Like, I do have my administrator's licenses, one
Mhm.
and two, Maryland, DC, Virginia. I can do those things. Um, so that wasn't my aspiration behind doing it. I'm very, very, very vested in special education, and
Okay.
um, people think you know a lot when you have a doctorate.
Hmm.
They think you know a lot, and it's not that you don't or you do. It's just like when you wear a suit to an event.
Hmm.
Come dressed in regular down clothes, or you could come in a suit. You walk in a suit, people think you're somebody important, you
Yeah.
know? And I mean, I also studied at George Washington University, which I think is like now I'm an HBCU person, but
Hmm.
George Washington University professors are the professors who have written the books on special education.
Okay.
So I got a great deal of my knowledge base about special education from the George Washington University, in addition to my own practices and my own experience. So
Okay.
I have started writing a book called ADHD is a Superpower,
Okay.
that more children need to, and more parents just need to understand that it's not all bad. It's
Mhm.
not all bad. If you could take that energy and focus it in the right direction, you could accomplish a lot. So you mean to tell me that um you're having difficulty because you can do something 10 times as fast as the person sitting next to you?
Yeah. No.
Yeah, we need to mold that a little bit and change the thinking around it. If you ask me, I got ADHD.
Yeah.
If you ask me, I'm bipolar. I have highs, I have lows, I have moments of manic where I'm doing a whole lot. I can't explain how I was able to take 12 credits in 8 weeks for semesters at a time.
Hmm.
Got to be a little something, something in there. Something that Adderall probably could cure. I don't know, but
Well, the Adderall might hinder it
right here,
more
exactly.
than help it.
Yeah. So I really think that the now not every single body.
Hmm.
But I don't necessarily think that a hyperactive, think about hyperactive, is something that we should just deem a disorder and decide that this is something we need to medicate.
Hmm.
No, this might be something, and it could be case specific, that we need to cultivate, and
Yeah.
we need to just mold it out a little bit so that educators understand this, parents understand this, students understand it. It's not terrible. And I've had hundreds of conversations with students over my years of teaching where they're like, well, I got ADHD, so and I'm like, no, you're looking at it wrong.
Hmm.
You need to take that and put it towards this, or take it and put it towards that. And that was one reason why I started coaching basketball at the school that I was at,
Hmm.
because these young men, they had all this energy, all this hyperactive energy. And, they were constantly in trouble and all that kind of stuff. And I was like, I mean, I was only an English teacher,
Hmm.
cue the music right now, okay? Cue it.
Hmm.
But I was only an English teacher, and I just, I just saw the potential in that hyperactivity. So I thought, okay, let's start with something they're very interested in, and then I could take that into the classroom. So they were killing it. We were undefeated. We were
Hmm.
undefeated. We went to one school, and we did our little huddle, and I was like, look, okay, treat this like a scrimmage. Just slow it down a little bit. Let
Hmm.
them make a point, but make sure y'all win, but just kind of, it's all right. And they laughed, that I told them that, but that's how powerful they had become on the court. And I
Yeah.
don't know basketball. I ain't never played basketball in my life. I just knew that they had strengths, and
Hmm.
I played to that. Now we were kicking butt all over the place. One school, they tried to fight us. We had to stop the game. Like, they tried to fight us, and the coach called me a bitch. It was about to go down.
Yeah.
And we just the referee cut the game and we were in the lead, so it was just like, y'all got it, this is done.
Mhm.
Blah, blah, blah. And it was really crazy, but I mean, like, they were killing like that, but it wasn't because I was like some super coach, but I just recognized their strengths, and then I constantly referred to that when we were in the classroom, and they were making all kinds of games, like all kinds of games, to the
Mhm.
point where some days, like, they would write down their answer, and then they would have to shoot it into the hoop.
Yeah.
I was standing by the hoop. So if you made it, you got to answer instead of raising your hands.
Mhm.
Right. So they were getting to do a lot of different things. And I think it's just something that needs to seriously be addressed, and not necessarily. I'm not against the medication, but I don't think that every case is you need medication, you need a doctor.
Mhm.
No, we just need to focus this energy and figure out how it's going to work best for you. So that's my second book.
But and I agree with you 100%. I think so for all of the educators, doesn't matter whether it's special education or traditional education, counselors, therapists, parents, when you hear this, listen to this, especially this part two, three times if you need to. Like, you just have to you have to mold the
Yeah.
child into, you know, into what they can or could be or should be. Because
Mhm.
a lot of times they know what they want. We just have to
Yeah.
help them
And you want to
harness
put it
that.
in where they want to go. Like,
Exactly. Don't try to lead them.
yeah,
Help them listen to what they're saying
yes.
and listen to what they're saying
Make it
and
who you dream they should be.
exactly
Hear
go
them
guide them on that journey.
and guide them and make it work for them. Like, that's what.
because because like you said, I think that a lot of times, and like I said, I don't have a PhD, I'm not a medical doctor, therapist, psychologist, anything, but I think a lot of times that medication does more harm than good. And I agree with you, it's not that we're saying every child needs to not doesn't need to take the medication, but there's some kids that, like you said, if you harness that energy and focus it to something, that kid can go as far as they want to go. It's just a
Yeah, and
matter of
especially when you think about learned behaviors,
mhm,
and I feel like, for example, if you're West Indian,
mhm,
you know, 9 times out of 10, your household is blazing. It's
mhm,
moving and music, cooking in the morning, Saturday, so you learn to be that kind of energy. Like, you learn that.
mhm.
There's some people who learn to consistently be excited or ready, it's just like that. Especially where there are households where there are a lot of children,
Mhm.
know? So I would think in those instances that's something you want to consider. Like, well, what is the household like?
Mhm.
Maybe those scales, where they do the scales test for, like the parents to fill them out, or teachers to fill them out for like an initial evaluation or initial diagnosis. I think those are things that should be considered.
Yeah.
Like it is, but I mean deeply so, where it's like, what is happening at 9 o'clock in the morning? Would you say your house is a one, a two, or a three? All of those things have an impact, or just even where you're from. Like growing up in New York was completely different from Maryland.
Mhm. Yeah.
Maryland to me is like, it's like, it's
Mhm.
slow, and it was an adjustment. And then even when I was living in Florida, it was like, slow. So, you know, to the people that I met and that I socialized with, I always seemed like I was on 100. So they were like inviting me to parties and they want me to come. But, it was just my environment prior to moving into these environments. I'm accustomed to 10. New York is like a temple. Boom, 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 boom. It's like always moving. And then you go into these other places and it's like you're like a fish out of water. You're like, what is going on? This is so, what is 9 o'clock? What
Yeah.
you mean sleeping? You know? So I think some behaviors, some diagnoses might just be learned behaviors,
Yeah.
and that's my thinking. And it could be some research there. Not that I'm trying to jump back into doing no research, but if I were to do some serious research, which I'm lying, I am doing research,
Mhm.
but that is something that I think more of a health professional might want to look
Yeah.
into, where I would just start the conversation around that.
Yeah. And I think, like we said, I think that this, and the reason I wanted to have you on was one, to celebrate your PhD,
Woo!
and then two, also
Oh,
to,
I had to-
just give people the full view of, what honestly what this podcast is about, because I took some time. I took some time. I took some time during the this Christmas break. I did my last episode, my 2020
Woo!
my 2020 wrap up. And then over this time, I took some time and I was like, okay, I got to figure out exactly what I want to do with this podcast. So with this podcast, it's more to uplift, motivate, and tell people, look, don't, just because somebody tells you something doesn't mean that's exactly what it is, you
Mhm.
know. So the goal is to show people different things. Like I said, this your story, I think, will fit a lot of kids' stories, male, female, black, white, Asian. It doesn't matter, just because you get your GED or you drop out or whatever the case may be, it's not saying that you couldn't.
Over.
Yeah, it doesn't mean that you can't make it to that mountaintop. Don't let society necessarily tell you, oh, you got your GED.
You started saying it.
Just because you got your GED, you can't be this, you can't do that. Allow, what you do with your GED or your education is totally up to you. Don't let society tell you,
Yeah, exactly.
that you can't do this or that. So I want to touch.
It helps to shape. It shapes you.
Yeah.
Shapes
And
you. Gives you another layer of armor that you didn't even know you needed.
yeah, and it's true, because quick story, and like I said, I hate to keep interjecting myself into into your interview, but I will say this, that that's my story with the podcast. And anybody that's listened to any of my old episodes or anything I've mentioned, and I want to honestly say probably two or three other episodes, was that for me, this was never intended to be a podcast. I started this after, George Floyd was murdered. And honest, it was just to check on my cousin just to see, because we're spread out, we're all over the place, Atlanta, Florida, Jersey, we're all over the place. So it was just a way for me to connect with them and talk and see, make sure everybody was doing good, because I'm a real calm, laid back person, but for whatever reason, George Floyd's murder took my anxiety through the roof. And it was just like, oh, damn, what am I going to do? This, and that. So it started out as a conversation on Zoom with my cousins, and it morphed into a podcast because I started getting positive feedback from people that were on, the original call. It's just like, we need to do this again. This is a great outlet for us to come together and talk and this, and that, especially during the pandemic. George Floyd's murder. We can't connect, like we normally do in the barbershop, all of those type of things. So
Oh yeah,
where
yeah.
that's where this came in at. And then it slowly went from a 3-week thing into, what you should, I started recording these and started putting them out on Instagram, YouTube and everything. And then it turned into this. But,
Mhm.
so like you said, it's just a matter of, you know, figuring out, finding out what you want to do. And sometimes you have to let a situation play out in order to see where you
Yeah,
need to be or want to be.
yeah, yeah. And I would even say that to that note, like letting the situation play out to see if it's what you need to be or what you want to be. Like, and now I feel anxiety because I feel like, oh, now what do I do? I'm a doctor now. What do I do? So sometimes you just got to let things roll and just be prepared to go.
Yeah, because like I said, when this fell in my lap, and like I said, I'm not on here to preach or anything like that. But like I said, God dropped this in my lap, and I honestly felt like it was a test. Like, all right, I'm going to give you this. Let me see what you do with it.
Hmm.
And I took it. Like I said, for me, it's just
That,
to
that is true.
it's just it's to motivate people, give them encouragement, the mental health aspect, all of that good stuff. I don't want to get too far off task, because I don't want this to turn into 2-3 hour episode or anything, because it can go that way. But I will say this, in light of all of the madness that's gone on today with
Oh,
these idiots storming the Capitol.
rioters or the protesters? Because there's a difference. Which one we talk about? The
Yeah,
rioters or the protesters?
you know
Were
what?
there any protesters there? I don't know.
I don't want to talk about the rioters or the protesters. I want to talk about the thugs. As you know,
Oh, the thugs.
the thugs that stormed the Capitol.
Yeah. Like, I mean, that what they were doing wasn't even as upsetting to me as the reactions from law enforcement
Yeah.
and the government. Like that was the thing. Like, you want to protest, want to break a couple windows, hey,
Mhm.
we're trying to do it. Like, we can't even walk. Black people can't even walk down the street with a
Nope.
hoodie on in your own neighborhood without getting shot. You can't drive your own car with your two kids in the back. You can't sleep in the apartment with your boo thing without getting killed.
Hmm.
That is like and then what was the curfew? 6 o'clock?
I
At
think so.
7:40, they were still out there.
And
All
they're
the curfews for Black Lives Matter at curfew time, they started shutting it down. They
it's
started
just,
shutting it down. We know our country got hoses and rubber bullets and dogs. I ain't seen not a one. So that's the worst part for me. Like, oh, so this is okay.
it's honestly a different way. Not for us. It's just a different way of the way that they see it. Because the funny and I laugh and I laugh and I'll tell anybody that hears this, sees this, the people that really know me. If I get uncomfortable, I
Mm-hmm.
laugh off a lot of stuff. And it's not that I find it funny. It's just that I'm not going to get angry about it. I'm going to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
And the funniest thing that I saw was, were these thugs climbing the side of the building. And my thing was, I'm like, okay, they're climbing the side of the building. Where's this great wall that they want to build on the border? How about they build this wall right
Exactly.
here to keep these thugs off the side of the building, or the side of the whatever, wherever they were climbing the side of the building.
Climbing, ghetto, ghetto,
You
ghetto.
know, but I do want
They're
to.
just going out. Let some black people have been going up that wall. We've been getting hit with sticks, hosed.
It would have been a totally
What about
different
the sit-ins
narrative.
in the 70s? The
As
60s, 70s, sit-ins. We can't even sit.
can't sit and get a meal.
You can't even sit. You can't even sit on the bus. You getting arrested for sitting on the bus. You don't want to sit in the back. I mean, that
Yeah,
whole thing was just like it made my head hurt. I was just like,
I had to turn the TV off. I was like, you know
oh,
what? And right before we came on to do this interview, I said, you know what? Let me turn the TV off. Let me turn my phone, put my phone down. Let me decompress before we jump on here. I said because I don't want to come on here with that negative vibe or energy. But I just want to say this, but before we wrap up, to the young lady, the young girl that was killed during all of this madness. When we heard it, it was a woman, this and that. Come to find out that it was a 16-year-old girl
yeah.
that lost her life. And my thing is, I'm pretty sure over the next couple of days we'll hear all sorts of stuff. Oh, she shouldn't have been there, this and that. I want to say this to anybody that thinks or feels that way. She was 16.
Exactly.
Her parents taught her this, and I'm not blaming them because I don't know, but her parents or someone that she respected to a certain level taught her this nonsense and put her in that situation. So for me, I'm not going to blame that little girl. Only thing I want to say is, you know, I'm not gonna pour this on my floor. I want to say, toast to the young lady, and
Rest in peace.
rest in peace. It's a shame that a 16-year-old girl had to lose her life for a dumb reason. I don't know what the reason is. I may never know. I probably don't want to know, but whatever the reason is, there's no reason that a 16-year-old girl should have lost her life during this nonsense.
Hmm.
So I want to say my last question to and for you. Well, I think I have two, but the last one I want to ask you is, at the end of the day, when it's all said and done, what do you want people to remember you for?
Uh, honesty, honesty, and authenticity. I've never tried to be something I'm not, and in all of the work that I will do and do, and when scholars years from now are reading my works, hopefully, or you know, using it for their research,
Mhm.
um, I want them to know that everything that I've done was authentic and honest. There's no fluff behind it. There's no other reason for it. It's because it's pertinent.
Okay.
What like with with and I'll go down a rabbit hole. But the fact of the matter is that African American males are over identified with hyperactive disorder and things of that nature. And that's what brought my interest to that.
Okay.
Because and I love teaching special ed, and I love, my little hyper students. I love it. But it's because I understand that their energy is just different.
Mhm.
And when you go back to, how teaching a young African male was done, it was through music, it was through dance, it was through experience.
Mhm.
And that's embedded in their DNA. Like that is who they are. So I refuse to believe that so many of these African American males need to be identified or diagnosed as being hyperactive. So that's where my interest in that area actually started. And
Yeah.
initially that was what my dissertation research was going to be. And then I was just like, you know what, maybe I need to develop more of a platform for this first, so people could actually listen,
Mhm.
see that first piece of work first on parent engagement and learning, and then tie that to our young boys and this hyperactive that they swear, every African American boy has. They're all hyperactive. Blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
So that it's a true and honest thing from the heart that I would like to get to, so that they're not just labeled, because along with that label comes a stigma, and then
Mhm.
they feel like they're less than because you're in special education, when in actuality a lot of them are very brilliant. Like, I've had some brilliant students
Mhm.
that I've fought tooth and nail for, like, no, 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 he don't need to do this, he needs to be here, and we're going to do it like this. Oh, you're going to leave him in my class? Okay, I got something for that. And I would literally design a curriculum that was completely different from the expectation for what you should have when you were in a special education
Mhm.
modified classroom, because it was just like, no, you got to know how to work with that energy to bring them to their potential. I don't want you to just be in my classroom and it's just regular, and when you leave here you're still this, hyperactive, oh, he can't learn kind of student.
Mhm.
That's not what I want. So I just did things differently and worked with what I had to do it. And, achieving my doctorate and earning my doctorate, it will at least allow for me to be, um, for my work in that area that I am working on, to be taken seriously and respected, because it's coming from an expert, right? An expert now.
Exactly. That's what the PhD that you earned.
Yes, and then it'll be so beneficial to so many generations to come, and so many Black boys. Because when you talk to some students, they will really, like, it affects them, it bothers them. They
Mhm.
feel like there's something so wrong with it. And I can't count how many conversations I've had where I've said, yeah, you're in special education because you learn different, that's all. It's You're not stupid. You
Mhm.
learn differently, you learn in a different pace, but you're not stupid. And then when you tap into those different learning styles, it's like, oh crap, they're brilliant.
Mhm.
And then even like like, I'm not an easy teacher.
Mhm.
Not easy. I'm not like hard, I'm making blood, sweat, and tears.
Mhm.
But I expect greatness, because when they walk into my classroom, that's what I see. And but it's a constant reminder that I'm like, you're moving up and on in your education. So yes, this is going to be challenging. You're constantly walking up a hill. That's what we're doing.
Mhm.
And then they get that and they take that in, and then they keep trucking. So I want people to remember how it's all authentic. It's from the
Okay.
heart, Joe. Yep,
From the heart.
from the heart. You know what I mean?
All right. So in closing, what would if you can you give the parents, the students, whoever the people that are going to hear this, are probably more parents and students. If you could give them a word of some sort of encouragement, what would that be?
Be ready and keep going. Just be ready. And you don't always know what you're ready for,
Mhm.
but if you know, like, I would say this: master your skill sets, right? As a parent, master your skill sets and be ready and keep going.
Okay.
And don't be afraid to use your voice. Like, that is extremely important. That's a lot of words. I know you asked for a word, but that is extremely important. And I'm gonna go down another rabbit hole, because there are some parents who, you know, they don't have a strong voice, you
Mhm.
know, and not on purpose, but because they're trusting. You trust the experts, and we all should be allowed to do that. But in one instance, my son almost lost his life because I trusted the experts.
Mhm.
But because of who I am, I still questioned and I still wanted to know what was going on. And you know, thank God that I did. And when I, voiced my concerns to the higher ups, when he was in the hospital, and he was only 3 months, he had RSV. And he's a big boy. Like, when he was born, he was like 10 pounds. So, I trusted the experts in the hospital, and all of that. And a nurse came in to give him some Motrin
Mhm.
or some Tylenol, you know, and I asked, oh, what's that? And they were like, oh, it's some medicine for the pain. And I was like, pain, he's asleep. And the nurse was like, yeah, and this just helped him to feel really good. And I was like, I said, he's only 3 months. So is that like 3 month motion? Because I ain't never heard no 3 month motion, So, and I'm, new mommy. So I don't know if I'm right, but I'm still going to ask. And he was like, he's only 3 months. And I said, yeah. And he was like, oh, wow. Okay. And walked out, and then I complained. And I mean, within minutes, the CFO or CEO was in the room. And I wasn't complaining because I was mad at the nurse. I was
Mhm.
complaining because I was concerned about other parents who would not question that nurse or
Yeah.
who might not have ever questioned that nurse. And now they're dealing with whatever might come from experiencing something similar.
Mhm.
You know what I mean? But, when I think about it, I'm like, imagine if I never asked. You don't know if it's brain issues. You don't know. So when I was talking to, I mean, I called the board of directors, the board of trustees, I was calling everybody. But when I was talking to them, that was my concern. I was like, look, I'm fine and he's going to be fine because I'm his mama.
Mhm.
But what about the children who don't have this mama?
Yeah.
What happens then? They can't even talk. They can't even move. So what happens then? And, you have other parents who are trusting. Like,
Mhm.
that's a problem. And when I started having that conversation, which is over my personal experience, because sometimes I feel like things happen because God knows you have a voice that you're not afraid to use.
Yeah.
I'm not a shout down, get crazy kind of person, but if I have a question, I'm gonna ask because I know that I communicate, with my spirit. I know that. I know where I speak from. So when I'm speaking, I know where it's coming from and I'm not afraid to let that voice out because I know where it's coming from. So I don't feel like even if you question it, I'm okay with that. But I know where it's coming from because again, I'm authentic. I don't have any ulterior motives. We good over here. We chilling. So there ain't nothing extra behind it. And and the Brooklyn in me, Brooklyn. But in your experiences, all those armors that you pick up in life helps to magnify your voice. So if you know you have these experiences and your armor is strong, you go ahead and you magnify that voice because you don't know who you are speaking for or when. I could have saved 100 babies later on
Yeah.
after talking to the people and then they were like, no, look, you need, they could have went and changed their protocols. I don't know, but I hope so,
Mhm.
right? Because you're just coming over here with a syringe, like, So to parents, I say use your voice. Like you're your child's keeper. Use your voice. Use your voice, and it's okay. And it doesn't even have to be a boisterous voice. Use your voice with your child. Speak into them. Use your voice in situations where they are. Speak to those and use it. Use it. It is okay. Worst case scenario, somebody might tell you shut up.
And that's all. But it's all about using your voice.
Yes,
Uh,
use your voice and and use it. Use it and trust it. Yeah.
so, well, I will say. So I want to thank you. Well, first off, let me close out by saying this. Um, don't, especially with this episode, when the people hear this episode and they listen to it, the main thing I want you to take from this is don't let somebody else write the end of your story.
Hell no.
Don't. That's the worst thing that I think that we can do. From the beginning of your story up until what you just said, we have to trust in ourselves, trust our gut and everything, and do not let somebody else write your story because from the beginning, you knew you didn't there was just something about high school, whether it was the building or whatever the case is, you didn't like it. You voiced your opinion. You didn't allow somebody to say, oh, girl, just go back to school.
Oh,
Everybody goes to
oh,
high school, this and that. Never. So for everybody that hears this, and I pray that and hope that well, not hope, take hope out of the equation. Pray that you make it to the end of the episode. And I want you to all to hear this and know Do not let somebody else write the end of your story. There's going to be plenty of people that try to write in between, but the most important part is the end. Don't let anybody else write the end of your story. So, with that being said, I want to say thank you, Dr. Negasti-Wright, for joining me this evening and being my first guest of 2021.
Blessed, Shama, Shama, Shama.
Well, I thank you for your time coming on and joining me tonight.
Thank you.
And I would love I'd love to have you back on another episode. And and when you talk to that uncle of yours that babysat you in his pocket, you know, tell him he did a great job.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
So thank you for your time.
And I love you, Mom.
Yes, we love you, Mom. and I hope to have you back on again soon. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you.
We Need to Talk 23. Signing off now.
I do.